A United States publishing company refused to print a children's book that was allowed in Germany because of supposed naked illustrations. In reality, these graphics were millimeters large and in the background of other images. However, these seemingly small details were determined to be unacceptable for an American audience, one which was composed of children whose innocence could be tarnished by the potentially harmful image. This is one of many examples in which the American public feels an obligation to take a step in protecting the innocence of its children. We as society take many actions to protect the innocence of children because this innocence is something that once lost can never be gained back. It's a uniquely wonderful and a somewhat mysterious quality we are born with, but fades as we progress into adulthood. This very absence of innocence in adulthood and our ability to recognize that it is fleeting fuels our amazement and celebration of it. It's difficult to remember the last time one felt truly innocent in adulthood. Even placing these words innocence and adult in the same sentence seems a bit like an oxymoron. People who are innocent look at the world with a new sense of wonder, with the expectation that they will constantly be discovering something new. There's an enchantment with the simplest things, and they see things with fresh, pure eyes, unsoiled by any negativity in the world. We've been able to recognize the uniqueness and these wonderful aspects within innocence. Because of this, we celebrate innocence and many attempt to preserve it as long as possible. Our attitude towards a privileged innocence manifests itself in various actions. Amazing Spider-Man, Revelation, sexual overtone. Batman, The Killing Joke, advocates rape and violence. And Dragon Ball, violence and nudity. All three popular comic books, and all three banned in various children's libraries in the United States. In the novel Seduction of the Innocent, a German psychiatrist warns the reader that comic books were a negative form of popular culture and literature and a serious cause of juvenile delinquency. He wrote about the detrimental effects of the content of these comics on the innocence of children. The public was upset by the notion that there were works that could potentially be harnishing the innocence we celebrate. In 1954, when this critical work came out, the U.S. government took an interest in the protection of innocence, and a congressional inquiry was launched into the comic book industry. A comic code authority was voluntarily established between various publishers, in which they deemed that the criminals in these comics must be punished in the story. This better ensured that the moral values of what is good and right prevailed in the end. Additionally, the movie industry has developed a rating system that effectively informs parents about the possibility of inappropriate content in a movie. Back in 1968, the chairman of the Motion Picture Association of America, MPPA for short, developed the movie rating system we know of today. Works would no longer be filtered on their moral content, but instead would be rated by the Classification and Rating Administration, a group of parents who established a letter rating and a description for each new movie. This is a constantly evolving rating system developed in order to inform parents of the type of content contained in a movie so that they, in turn, can protect their children. Whereas there used to be a jump from a G rating to an R rating, in 1984 the PG-13 rating came out. This whole system is a reflection on society's wish to protect children from the inappropriate content we feel children should not be exposed to, because this content could potentially tarnish their innocence and expose them to topics that they should not yet know about. It is in this way that we are preserving their lack of understanding about real-world situations and complicated issues. Even now, the MPPA is facing criticism on increasing presence of gun violence in PG-13 movies. Along the same lines, the UK is introducing a system in which music videos will also be rated on a scale similarly to if they were movies. The second phase of the pilot that began this past October will once again test a system in which each music video is given an age rating that is then passed along to YouTube in vivo. This system is meant to give parents the ability to protect their children from exposure to mature and unsuitable content. While this UK program is still in its preliminary stages, this is nevertheless an example of the frontier of the business in which we as a society will create barriers in order to protect and preserve the innocence of children. Whether in novels, comic books, movies, or other sources of information, there exist methods in which we as a society attempt to protect the innocence of children by filtering what they are exposed to. Innocence is valued and celebrated by our society, and thus explains our want to protect it. But saying everyone tries to protect the innocence of a child is a generalization, and there are situations in which no such thing occurs. The existence of child labor would be one of these exceptions. The majority of employed children are ones who are underprivileged and are forced to work both days and nights in order to survive. This job exposes a child to the reality of the world and the harsh circumstances in which one can live, destroying some of their innocence and their positive thoughts about the world around them. The article, Preserving a Lost Innocence, captured this idea best in its conclusion that one day you were a child, the next day your childhood has ended. Overall, when we look at society, we see that there is a multitude of restrictions and regulations for daily life in an attempt to protect the innocence of children. It is only because innocence is privileged by society that such means are used. We treasure a child's innocence because it is something we can no longer attain, because childhood is a stage in life that is unique, and because children are impressionable and easily influenced. They are emerging and transforming identities that we feel should be celebrated and protected.